learning, right? So today we have this topic, introduction to Malaysian public sector. Actually, this lecture there are two parts. One is about Malaysian public sector, and the other is about accountability. So for accountability, so that's why I split into two. So for today, the main coverage is on the Malaysian public sector. And then next class, we'll discuss on accountability, right? But as in the slides, this is one slide. Okay, but because of I think more effective in that way, so that you have more time to digest and understand. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So you look at the outline, right? The first part on the Malaysian government. We look at the structure, the governance, relevant statutes, and in this discussion, we also mention relationships between the federal government and the state governments. Okay, of course, for international students, this case about Malaysian as a case, all right, was pretty much, I think the structure of Malaysian government is shared in other countries as well, but if you have democratic system, and in particular, if you, I mean, more close, more similarities, if your country is a Commonwealth countries, okay, so pretty much. That's on the first part, and then we look at financial management framework and as well as the accountability. Okay, so for today, I think the first 2 points. Right, the governance, the structure of Malaysian government, there are 3 branches of the government, right? So at the top is legislative, executive, and judiciary. Okay, so for this class, okay, this is important for you to be able to see the whole picture in the sense of how accountability and performance of government has been structured. Okay, of course, these are at the top level, at the macro level, where there are 3 main branches of government. Legislative, you're basically referring to parliament, right, where they issue law, as well as providing framework for executive to work, to operate, and then the budget also from the legislative, budget allocations, as well as to hold executive accountable, right, through to the legislative. And then we have judiciary. Okay, so 3 separate branches. If you look at the point there, so in order that no single branch of government shall dominate, so there is check and balance, with the separation of power. I think for accounting students, they like to relate this point to segregation of duties. Okay, you learn in audit on internal control, on the accounting system on segregation of duties. So how important it is. Okay, still one of the major internal control. Okay, still pretty much applicable in whatever business environment and scenarios, as well, I mean, in the organizational settings, right? And so all attempts to overcome those controls definitely will undermine the objective that what is should achieve. So I think if you get the idea of segregation of duties, how important it is, so that of course in accounting the transaction will be proper, will achieve all the needs that is what transactions should represent, and also in terms of recording and accounting. So in the case of government, it's much broader, but with the same idea. So there is a check and balance. Okay. So, however, the second point, however, absolute separation of powers is difficult to hold, as some of members of parliament are the cabinet ministers. I mean, this is the practice. Okay. Generally, a member of parliaments, they become the ministers or the secretaries of the ministries right? And to work and act on behalf of the government, as they have been elected as the ruling party and become the ruling government. Okay, normally, okay, either in Malaysia, in other countries, political parties go through political parties that dominate the parliament. So pretty much, I mean, that is basically the idea. And but nevertheless, that's the practice. But in terms of how strong it is, the legislative, so this, I mean, this system should provide that check and balance. Okay, now we look at the structure, right? In other democratic system, you have legislative, executive, judiciary. But on top of that, in Malaysia, we have the king. Okay, we have the king, Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the head of state, right? The prime minister is the head of executive, right? So the head of state is Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the king, right? And of course, on behalf of the conference of rulers. So in other, let's say in the US, the head of state is the president. In Malaysia, the head of state is Agong, the king. And so basically all branches of the government to function at the end must be endorsed and approved by the king. I mean, it is properly laid down in the constitution, in the Malaysian constitution. Okay, so these are providing a broad structure of governance that later on, of course, I mean, for this class, you will see the details, how this works. Okay, in terms of management accounting, in terms of how funding is distributed, and then in terms of reporting, then how every elected civil servants as well as other civil servants, they have been held accountable for using the public money. Okay, so all this system in place. Okay, these are definitions. Legislative power, right, in the hands of the parliament, right, including tax collection and also to use for the public money, okay, in the hands of is vested in the parliament, in legislative power, a legislative branch. Okay, there are two houses in the parliament, House of Representative, or we call it right, Dewan Rakyat. Okay, Dewan Rakyat. All these are elected. They are basically become members of this house based on election. For House of Representative, okay, for Dewan Rakyat. So mostly, I think, if you look at in the media, the media coverage is for the Dewan Rakyat, for the House of Representatives. I think in the UK they call it House of Commons. Okay, and also in Malaysia we have House of Senate, or we call it in Malay Dewan Negara. House of Senate, the senators. Okay, different than other countries. The senators are appointed; they are not elected. Mostly senators, they are appointed. Why they've been appointed? Because of their special expertise, their special competencies, or the country need them. And or maybe they represent certain groups of people in the country that is their expertise and their views are needed, okay, for them to be in the House of Senate. But they have been appointed, but some also there are also practice where I mean, certain individuals or politicians, they have a special expertise that they have need to be appointed as ministers, but they basically are not elected in the election, so they become members of Senate for them to be appointed as ministers. Okay, so you can see this practice. Okay, these are the current Malaysian the executive. Okay, we call it Malaysian cabinet ministers, and headed by the Prime Minister. So the current Prime Minister is Tan Sri Muhyiddin. Okay, the judiciary, the court system. Okay, so all the disputes will be go through the court systems. Right, now we move to administrative structure of Malaysian government. Are you still with me, class? Don't fall asleep.
Yes, sir.
It's a very tough time now. Okay, make sure you open your eyes. Okay, and listen. If you have any question, you just interject. Not to worry. You just raise your voice, whatever. Like brother Hakim. Who's that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Right. So you look at this. The government, the Malaysian government, we have 3 tiers. Okay, 3 tiers. 3 tiers government: federal, state, and local. So I think, of course, the focus of our class is on federal government. Okay, the agencies and the federal ministries, departments, and statutory bodies. Okay, so make sure you have a clear idea how departments and study bodies are accountable to. Mostly they are accountable to the respective ministries, and the ministry is basically okay with the members of cabinet becoming the ministers of each ministry. So that's how they link to the cabinet ministers, and at the end accountable to the parliament. Right, same structure. You can find it in the states. Okay, of course, in the state also they have legislative as well as executive. Okay, state assembly, and the executive through departments and agencies. And the third tier is local government. Okay, there are 3 types of local government in Malaysia. There are city councils, mainly on the major cities, municipal councils, as well as district. So I think it is interesting, local government, these 3 types, because local government are very important in the sense they provide all the services locally, business licensing, street lighting, okay, the garbage collection, so very important services so that the society are in order. But some, that's why I think it's important to understand, okay, some services or jurisdictions under federal, okay, some on the states and some on the local. So it's important because if you understand it correctly, then you can channel the issues that have been raised on whatever issues, that you can channel it to the proper place so that it can be heard properly. So I think in accounting also, if you look at, we teach you that even to report or to raise any issues, you must report to the right person. So that's the main. Right, now we look at relationships between federal and state. Beside the executive, we look at the financial relationships as well. Right, okay, just quickly. So this is as laid out in the constitutions, federal constitutions. So look at this. The jurisdictions between federal government and state government, okay, as prescribed in 9th schedule of federal constitution. Okay, so this is important in the sense, we talk about budget allocations. These are directly related to it, and sometimes there are matters that need to be discussed or need to be handled because they are also related to directly the services that are needed, okay, for the people and for the services to the country. Okay, so you look at the federal list. So some of them, okay, external affairs, so diplomatic relationships with other countries, defense, internal security, okay, administration of justice, finance, trade and commerce, shipping and fisheries, communication. So that's why you have a Ministry of Communication. Because I think communications is very important because it relates to the whole country. Okay, and nowadays with the digital age, and I think at all time, communication, definitely good communication system is important. Communication infrastructure, transportation, okay, education and healthcare. So these jurisdictions is under the federal government. So you can see under the federal government, so that there is a specific ministry for that to achieve or to support the needs based on this federal list. Then you look at the state list. Okay, so the major items there is forestry and agriculture. So forest is in the hands of the state. So federal government is not easy to interfere. Okay, So land matters. So if you look at land, is a big, sometimes it become a big issue because many development is in the states, but the budget is coming from the federal government. So that's why the federal government and the state need to work closely so that they can deliver what is being planned. Okay, Islamic affairs and revenues. Okay, this is not only under state, but this one is under Majlis Agama, under state religious councils, and basically directly accountable to the Sultan of each state. Okay, so some state Islamic affairs and revenues basically under Sultan, not even under the state assembly. Okay, but they have close relationships. Okay, and state work and waters. Okay, so water is very important, but it's under state jurisdiction. But there are, if you look at water, there are two. One is the water asset. Some of the water assets are basically owned by or managed by the federal. Okay, so if you look at the water, there is a water asset from the north to south of Peninsula Malaysia, basically managed by the federal government. It's a federal assets, but the water itself is a state matters. Okay, so you can see, okay, because these are very important land matters, water, river. Okay, all these are very important, for development, and the federal government and the state government, they must work closely to make sure that what they plan for the development, they can deliver. Okay, and at the same time, there are also concurrent lists where state government and federal government, they can basically work together. Okay, including town and country planning, drainage and irrigation. So you can see some of these, they have the ministry that's in charge of this, including housing. Right, financial relationships. Okay, if you look at revenue, there are revenues that accrue to the federal government. So mostly, I think pretty much, if you look at the revenue is in the hands of the federal government, okay, through taxations, either corporate tax or personal tax, okay, and through customs, okay. Expenditures and commitment, both in federal and state government are required to cover the expenditures, right? But the federal may provide financial assistance, and some of the assistance are basically prescribed by the Constitution, okay? With regard to borrowing, state may borrow from the federal government to alleviate budget deficits. Okay, so budget deficits, basically when their expenditures are more than their revenue. So how to cover the deficit? They have to take loan, okay? But in the case of the state government, they can borrow to the federal government. So you must be careful in this class about borrowing, because government agencies or government entities or government itself in the federal or state, they cannot borrow as what you understand the private sector or companies borrowing. Because company, they can borrow, go directly, authorization by the shareholders or by the board of directors. They can go to respective banks to secure the financing. Okay, but in the case of government agencies, they are not like that. Okay, they cannot just simply go to the banks and ask for borrowing. Okay, so it's not happening that way. So you must understand clearly. So borrow normally very restricted. Okay, borrowing to the federal government, and federal government is the one who are borrowing through whatever channels that are available. Okay, so need to be clear on that, because sometimes is a common confusion among the students. They think that government agencies can borrow just like private companies. They are not, okay? Right, with regards to revenue, look at this, Article 97 of the Constitution. All revenues and money raised or received by the Federation shall be paid to Federal Consolidated Fund. And the same applies to the state, okay? State Consolidated Fund, except Zakat, Fitrah, Baitul Mal, or similar Islamic religious revenues. Okay, so you see that there is a specific fund or specific account, call it Federal Consolidated Fund, right? So all the money collected will be kept in this fund, right? But who manage, definitely later on we'll discuss, Accountant General Department. managing this and to keep the accounts. So all the money collected will be recorded under this account. Okay, and of course with the revenue they can spend. So even the spending will be drawn from Federal Consolidated Fund. So this is the main account for the government, both at the Federal Consolidated Fund, with the State Consolidated Fund. So the term you must get for yourself familiar. Okay, Federal Consolidated Fund. I think if you look at the term also, it's not something alien to you, because the word consolidated, I think you learn consolidated accounts. Okay, but in this case, yeah, it can be, there are similarities, but later on you'll see, we'll discuss this in detail when we discuss on the financial reporting topic. Excluding zakat, fitrah, baitul mal. Okay, so if you look at this, because Islamic revenues, they are under Majlis Agama, okay, under Religious Council. Okay, so that's why it's excluded. And state government, okay, is entitled to receive financial assistance in the form of grants. So grants, the word also very important. Right, in terms of expenditures and commitments, federal and state government to cover their own expenditures. However, if the state governments are unable to cover the expenditures, they can request, okay, get the funding from the federal government. Okay, and if it is loan, definitely will be on reimbursable basis, or they have to repay the loans as well. And charge to the consolidated fund. Borrowings, the federal shall not borrow except authorized by the federal law, and also approved by the parliament. The provision is applicable to the state, where the state can borrow with the approved financial institutions if the period is less than 5 years. Okay, the purpose of government borrowing, one is to cover the budget deficit, and with the normally budget deficit is resulted as results of the development budgets. So you can see at the bottom there are two types of expenditures: development and operating expenditures. Okay, of course the word is very common, development and operating, but these are the terms used in the government representing of there are development budgets. With that you have development expenditures in operating budget. So with that you have operating expenditures. So later on you see what it means. Okay, and I think by completing the budgeting topics, you can see clearly what it means between these two types of budgets and expenditures. Right, but generally in Malaysia, budget deficit is to cover or to finance development activities. Right, now a bit in terms of the instruments where they can get the source of the funding. Okay, there are local domestic loans, okay, and as well as I think mostly is under treasury bills or Malaysian government securities managed by the central banks. Okay, but in specific projects, sometimes they receive funding from international banks, particularly the World Bank, ASEAN Development Bank, or IDB, Islamic Development Banks. Okay, I think Malaysia, we are yet to receive any funding from IMF, International Monetary Fund, because their requirements are very restricted. Okay, I think in practice, maybe other countries, yes, but Malaysia, I don't think they receive any money from IMF. Okay. On the right side there, you look at Malaysian government securities and the treasury bills. Okay, this is managed by the central banks. Okay, so that will be the main source if you want to take the loans. Okay, grants. So this indicates between the state and government and the federal government, but grants is also given to government agencies. Okay, we'll discuss that later. But for this class, just between relationship between the federal government and the state government. Okay, a financial system from the federal government, and it's not repayable by state government. Okay, so that is grants. Grant is not loan. Okay, so another form of financing is loan. But the word loan, you know that it's a commitment that must be repaid. It's a liability. Whereas grant is revenue, and It's not repayable. Okay, and definitely to be used to cover their expenditures, for their spending expenses. Of course, in the private sector, you call it expenses. In the case of government or non-profit, the common word is expenditures. So try to use all these terms rather than using what is commonly known for the private sector or profit-making institutions. But for the government, expenditures is more relevant. Okay, rationale for the grant: states have insufficient revenue. Okay, the grant also given because of what is being provided in the constitutions, including to have equitable standard of living and also the quality of infrastructures is included. Okay, right. So one example is revenue growth grant. Okay, so if you look at this, the basis of revenue growth based on the revenue of the federation if there is growth, and then with the maximum of 250 million per year in total. So the basis for distribution is based on the size of population as well as state GDP. Okay, but you look at the users, so the very restricted use, used for water supply, public housing, industrial estate development, other development projects approved by National Finance Council. So National Finance Council is headed by the Prime Minister. Okay, so if you look at this revenue growth grant, right, based on 2007, okay, you can download all this because government, they work based on statutes and acts. Okay, so what provisions? So I just show you example. I download this from the internet. Normally, AG chambers, they provide Attorney General chambers, their website, they provide all these statutes. You can download them for free. Okay, then you can appreciate what is there. That is provided by the law. In this case, relationship between the federal government and the state government. Because funding is important, you know, because with the good funding, they can develop good projects for the people. All right, there are other types of grants. Okay, so if you look at this, there are grants provided by the Constitution. Okay, capitation grant, state road grant, state reserve fund. Okay, capitation is based on population. State road, okay, it's interesting. If you look at road, because transportation, road network is all important for the development and for the people. So that's why there are federal government road, state government road, and local government road. So it's interesting. So every time when you drive your car or ride your bike, okay, you must ask yourself which road that you are riding or driving. Is it a federal road? Is it a state road? Is it a local government road? Because each road, who manage it, they will maintain it. Okay, so there is specific grant from the federal government to be provided to the state. They call it state road grant, basically for the maintenance, for the maintenance of the road to make sure that it is in order. Right, and then there is a National Finance Council for infrastructure. It's also grant based on the Acts of Parliament. So the example one given just now is revenue growth grant and others. Any questions so far? Very quiet. Oops.
So these are the only 3 grants, sir. There are only 3 types of grants.
Yeah, I mean this one is as provided by the Constitution. Okay, by the Constitution. Maybe you're asking on if you look at petroleum, for instance. Okay, I believe that is under Petroleum Act. Okay, that the state where they share the petroleum revenues. So then you look at other acts. But this one is general for all the states. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right. Yeah, because if you look at in the case of petroleum, because petroleum is owned by the revenue is owned by the federal government. Okay, so that's why, and then of course there are sharings between state and federal government. And but I think petroleum, yeah, generally the politicians, they use that as one of their political mileage. But in any case, it's interesting, yeah? Because in the case of Malaysia, okay, the setup to develop petroleum, and then I think it's interesting, yeah. Okay, now we move on to Malaysian Public Sector Financial Management Framework. Okay, before that, I just want to see if there's any questions.
So,
Yes.
why government workers have to retire by the age of 60, but why the minister are not supposed to retire on the age of 60, by the age of 60?
Okay, I can answer on the civil servants, appointed civil servants. It's a good question. Okay. Okay, in this class, I also discuss on and also highlights. Civil servant, there are two types of civil servant. One is, we call it elected civil servants. The other is appointed civil servants. Okay. So elected civil servants, these are the members of parliament. They are elected through parliament, through election. Okay. And mostly they hold ministerial positions or a political secretary and others. Right. But another group of civil servants is appointed civil servants. Okay. That's how, but in Malaysia is we have a very strong appointed group of civil service. Very strong. I think one of the example in the world, globally. Okay. So you can see that even during the time, I think this year is a good example. Even when there was a vacuum of leadership, okay, when there was change of government, but the civil service is very strong. They still deliver. Okay, you can see how good it is in terms of the healthcare services, how they manage the COVID-19 problems with the defense, with the security, as well as education. Okay, and there are others as well. So you can see these two groups of civil servants. So our focus is on appointed civil servants because pretty much they are the executors, the implementers. Whereas the elected civil servant, mainly they are policy makers. Okay. So with regard to your questions, right? The government is basically, I think the age of retirement moved from 55 to 60. Okay, so that 60 is the maximum age for of civil servant, appointed civil servant to retire. Okay, with regards to the elected civil servants, okay, I think as long as they're being elected, I don't think Malaysia provide any law that restricted individuals to run for election. Okay, so you can see our previous Prime Minister 4 and 7, okay, at the age of 95, still can run for the election. As long as they won the election, definitely they can still continue become the member of parliament and to be appointed as one of the members in the executive branch. Okay, so that's the scenario.
Right, so thank you.
Okay. All right, no other questions. I move on. Okay, now we look at government accounting machinery. Yeah, so these are all your good friends over the semester. In terms of agencies, the Treasury, as well as Accountant General Department. Later on also at the end, we will look at the audit, National Audit Department as well. Right, and then the personnel, okay, your close friend during the semester for PSA. So the first guy, can you read the first person? Why is reading there? Why is the writing there? Anyone?
Controlling officers.
All right, thank you. Thank you, brother. What's your name?
Mirul.
Amirul. Okay, thank you, Amirul. Huh? So controlling officers, okay, very important person for you. They are not ministers, but they are appointed civil servants. Okay, but they are managing the budgets. Okay, they are managing the budgets. Okay, controlling officers. Your close friend for PSA, yeah. Because yeah, your close friend. If you become accountants in the government bodies, you can work for. I mean, can become one of them. Can also work for them. If you work for ministers, I think definitely you will handle. You have to work closely with the controlling officers. Okay, I think some of our, I mean, the previous government, we have 2 students working for new graduates. I think one of them, Brother Fikri, and the other is Brother Shamsul. Okay, as a political special advisor to the minister. Okay, so new fresh graduates, in 1 or 2 years, graduates become special officer to the ministers. So then definitely they need to work closely with the controlling officers because they're managing the budgets. Okay. And system and procedures, you can look at, okay, federal constitution. So many clause in the constitutions that is basically directly related to how public money being managed and be accounted for. Then we have Financial Procedures Act, providing the details of the constitution. Treasury Instructions, Audit Act. Okay, if you look at the bottom there, MPSAS, these are the accounting standard for public sectors. So become your close friend as well later on. Right, so look at the treasury, yeah. So the treasury, this is from the treasury website, you can have a look. So these are the treasury building in, where is it, this building? Where is it located? Some of you answer in, oh, no one answering. Where is it located?
Putrajaya.
All right, Putrajaya. So I think many of our graduates also work in this place. Right, and to formulate and implement fiscal and monetary policies, there should be policies there. Okay, fiscal is our discussion for public sector accounting, fiscal policy. So basically, we are talking about the details of fiscal policies. Okay, monetary policies is through Bank Negara, right? The central bank. Central bank is under the Treasury. It's one of the agencies under the Treasury. To formulate financial management, accounting process, procedures, and standards. Okay, financial management, okay, by the Treasury directly, can be budget divisions. Okay, whereas the accounting is by the AG, Accountant General Department. Okay, so under Treasury as well. Okay, and I think one more point. Okay, to monitor financial management of ministries, government departments, and state bodies. So I think here, if you look at this, so the word ministries is mentioned, government departments, statutory bodies. Okay, so get yourself familiar with all these institutions, because these are very specific to the government, and how they managed somehow been influenced by their status. To manage government procurement, okay, we have a specific topic on procurement as well as housing loans. Okay, that's their main duties. But if you look at even the word fiscal, there can somehow give you the idea how things works, because government expenditures is one of the major expenditures in the economy to move. Sometime during the crisis, so what is left to move the economy is fiscal expenditures. Okay, so how important it is. So how to make things definitely accounting systems, okay, reporting, it's all very important to make sure that things are in order. All right, so the accountants for the government, we call it accountant general, and the department, they call it accountant general department. Okay, in Malay they call it Jabatan Accountant Negara Malaysia. So this is the office just next to the main building, okay, the treasury. So these are what they promise, the mission: improve the public sector accountability, to prepare quality public accounts. Okay, that will be, you will evaluate this, okay, for for the whole semester, quality public accounts, according to the legal provisions as well as professional requirements, including following the accounting standards, to provide quality accounting consultancy and advisory services. So the second point is basically their services to the government agencies, to the ministries, to the government agencies. So your knowledge of accounting is very useful. Okay, you can work in this place. I think we have one graduate. I think he worked in audit, but got an offer to work in AG. I think good part now, the new policy of AG is if you work for them, they will sponsor for your professional membership. Okay, I think there's a new trend in AG where they staff to take professional exams. Okay, even professional exams, you don't have to pass quickly. Of course, if you can pass quickly, it's good. But some of us, sometimes we pass even after the age of 40. Okay, so our friends in AG just recently qualified. Okay, so people are basically upskilling their knowledge and competencies as an ongoing, continuous education. So as a professionals, continuous education is important. I myself still learning. Are you learning still?
Yes, sir.
Only one.
Sir.
Okay. Yeah, that's representing everybody. Yeah. Right. Third point, to manage human resource. Yeah. So human resource here referring to a supply of accountants to the government as a whole, at the federal government as well as state government. So you can see that's why you have state accountant is basically from AG. Okay. And to regulate and enforce accounting and management related matters. So all accounting standards is basically regulated or monitored, managed by AG. So one of the important department for you in PSA. Okay, now we move on to controlling officers. Okay, your good friend, best friend for PSA. Who's your best friend in PSA?
Controlling officers.
Okay, thank you, brother. Brother Amirul, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, right. It's good to have good friend. So here you have controlling officers. So who appointing them? The Minister of Finance or Chief Minister in the case of state, right? They are basically responsible for the budget. Of course, the budget with the budget allocation, so they call it purpose of expenditures. So each purpose of expenditures. This is important line because later on we learn about budgeting in the government. Okay, in terms of its structure, administration, as well as the techniques. Okay. So a controlling officer is a chief accounting officer. Right? How they translate this into the government agency, the structure in the government is basically controlling officer generally is the chief secretary of the ministry. Okay, in the case of ministry, chief ministry. So if you look at the ministry and departments, so the controlling officers are the chief secretary of the ministry. Right. So if you the head of the administration of the ministry is the chief secretary, yeah, or in Malay we call it KSU. Okay, Ketua Setiausaha. Okay, for each ministry. So they work closely with the elected ministers. Okay, so because these controlling officers, they are the one who will be directly accountable to the parliament. Okay, under the select committee of the parliament, which is public account committee. So these are the people who are directly accountable to public. Okay, so if you look at the last point, okay, besides they have to follow all the procedures. Okay, they have to secure proper exercise or performance of its duties. So how we translate this into a management perspective? So they have to use the budget, okay, effective, efficient, and economical manner. Okay, so you understand effective, efficient. So that's how this all these duties be translated to make sure that there is no waste in the government money. So who is responsible? This person, controlling officers. Okay, under him, basically, because the controlling officer is the chief accounting officer, So the accounting officers, okay, they have all these duties for the government revenue as well as expenditures and public money, okay, including recording, custody, and the bottom there, the last point, receive, hold, and dispose public stores, okay, in the case of government assets and inventories. Conduct of course of conduct as an accountant. This one is for accountant in public sector. Trustworthy in handling public funds. Okay. Trustworthy in handling public funds. So the word there used is public funds. Okay, or public monies. But later on you will become have more understanding what funds means. Public funds means. I think then you can have better understanding. So should demonstrate probity in handling assets and resources entrusted to them, care in safeguarding property, assets, and confidential information, proper observance of the organizational rules and procedures to avoid waste and extravagance, personal honesty in claiming expenses and ensuring that official asset resources are not, not mismanaged, or used for personal use, okay, for personal use. So honesty is very important. So integrity is very important for you to be an accountant. So try to calculate these values. The fact that you are a IIUM students, okay, so bring all these values to yourself and practice them. And when you become a professional accountants, all right, so this is your forte. These are your values. I think for us, okay, always bring that, at the end we are accountable to Allah. Okay, so accounting is very okay, because you are talking about how to use public money, or even in private sector. Okay, to use other people's money so that we can deliver, discharge the accountability of it. Okay, to make sure that there is proper performance and all that. So integrity is the utmost. So steadfast in it. Okay, hold it. With your will to make sure that we'll always be honest. All right. Okay. So accountability in public sector we'll cover in the next class. Okay, so that this concept can be digested properly. Okay. With that, any questions?
Sir.
Okay.
What's the difference between procurement and purchase?
Okay, to put it simply, purchasing is part of procurement process. Okay, purchasing is part of procurement process, because procurement is basically the entire process to purchase the supplies for the organizations. But procurement, there are procurement process to make sure that value for money for the organizations. If they want to buy or to get the service, it's not only purchasing. Purchasing here means purchasing services, purchasing products, facilities. If you bring this to government procurements, okay, let's say, governments, they want to build Putrajaya. Last time they built the whole facilities Putrajaya. So that is the whole procurement process. Let's say they want to build KLIA. You know KLIA, KL International Airport. So basically that's the whole basically part of the procurement process. Okay, that's at the government level, at the Malaysian government. But in the case of government agencies, they also have procurements. They need to buy supplies. They have to engage consultants. They have to, sometimes they have independent contractors. They want to construct new facilities. Okay, so procurements are much broader than purchasing, because purchasing normally we are referring to buying goods and services, particularly goods purchasing. You purchase, food, for instance. But procurement is much broader. And if we talk about the quality of the purchasing services, the selection of the suppliers, all those are the procurements. So it's a big area. Even you can be good in procurement process, right? It's important because if you look at let's say if you talk about government budgets, possibly at least 30% of their budget is basically on procurements. So if you look at nation government procurements, is around 300 billion. Okay, so easy, almost 100 billion is basically on procurements. So how important it is that you make sure that good system should be in place. Okay. Other question? Or question from that question? Or question from that answer?
So the differences how bigger the thing is, like that. Procurement is bigger than
okay, you read further on procurements. Okay. Okay, of course, in a very simple term, in the basic concepts, okay, procurement is purchasing. You can say that. It's nothing wrong to say procurement is purchasing. But if you understand what procurement means, okay, as a process in the organization, then you need to bring all the factors that you talk about procurements. It's just like accounting lah. If you say accounting, what is accounting? People will say, yeah, it's recording, it is classifying, put in an entry. But after now you are final year, isn't it? What is accounting for the organization? Oh, so many things come to your mind, isn't it? Oh, skills, accounting systems, judgment, okay, to make sure the report is useful, that kind of understanding. Are you with me? Okay.
Alright, sir.
Yeah. So that's because you are a final year student, okay? You're not first year student, so your understanding should be sophisticated enough.
Alright.
So one word you can read. You need to read for your one, of course, for the course, okay, to meet your assignment, whatever. The other is for your own general knowledge. Okay. So I think as part of accounting students, and you are moving towards as a chartered accountants or professional accountants, continuous learning is your forte. Yeah. Okay. As a professional accountant, we always have CPD, continuous CPE points, continuous learning. Okay. Continuous professional education, right? So keep on update yourself. So keep that as a habit. Okay. Then in learning new things nowadays, it's very fast, isn't it? Because you young guys, you can learn faster. Any other question? Right, it's 1 hour already, and hopefully, so see you all on next class. And I think you should start working on your assignments, okay, quickly, because it's only 6 weeks. If you're not sure, you can always discuss. If you're not sure about the assignments also, you can always ask. I can explain, inshallah. All right, so if no question, I stop sharing. And let me see. Right, no question also in the WhatsApp. Right, in that case, I will end this session and I will wait another 5 minutes. And if you have any question, even after ending the sessions, you can always ask. So with that, I end this class session with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, sir.
Bye
Okay.
there.
Thank you, sir.
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 Okay.